Hello! Today I'm going to try to answer the question, Teacher, bakit yung anak ko dati nakakasabi na yan ng mama, pero hindi na to naulit or hindi na niya sinasabi? So this is something that we refer to as regression, and it's something that I want to define for you today and also to discuss what else it could mean. Kaya tara, usap tayo. Let's get talking. Hi! If you're new here, I'm Teacher Kaye and I'm a certified speech-language pathologist. Today is about regression. So what is the definition of regression? Ang ibig sabihin lang nito ay kapag ang isang tao ay may ine-exhibit ng skill or meron na siyang kayang gawin dati, tapos hindi na ito nauulit or hindi na niya biglang ginagawa. So as a pediatric speech-language pathologist, usually nakikita po namin ito with children between 18 months to 3 years old. At ang ilang examples nga nito ay tulad nung nasabi ko sa intro ay nakapagsabi na ng isang word kay mama yan or daddy or meme tapos biglang hindi na niya naulit. Minsan din yung kawalan ng eye contact, minsan loss of adaptive skills, dati nakakakain na siya mag-isa tapos biglang hindi na niya ginagawa. Today, I'm going to offer you two perspectives. One is based on research or kung ano na yung mga na-study ng scientists based on childhood regression, and then from my personal clinical experience. One of the most common disorders that is linked with regression is autism spectrum disorder. So about 1/3 of children with autism lose some of their skills in the preschool ages. But regression does not automatically mean autism. It could be other things as well. There is another syndrome called rett syndrome, which happens mostly to girls. Rett syndrome is a rare and genetic neurological and developmental disorder. So in the words pa lang of neurological, meaning involving the brain, and developmental, kung paano lumalaki or nagpo-progress ang isang individual. So if that's the problem, then it's easy to see why the skills will not develop in the typical manner. We also have the Landau-Kleffner syndrome, which is a childhood condition that affects their speech and also has a seizure component. Ang seizures po ay mga wrong electrical firings in the brain. So if a seizure causes a misfiring in a part of the brain that affects speech and language, so that's why there is the loss of the ability to understand speech or to be able to talk. So what actually happens is aphasia, is the loss of the ability to communicate verbally or in written forms. So these are the three disorders or conditions that are linked to regression of skills based on research. But let me just share with you that it also has a link with childhood disintegrative disorder, or that it has been seen na baka pwede rin because of psychosocial stressors. So the regression of skills can happen in several areas. It could be primarily speech and language. It could be social. Usually, it is a mix of language and social, and it is very rare na social lang yung regression. And then we also have mixed regression, and that's where the motor and adaptive skills fall under. So from these three that I have discussed with you, babalikan ko lang or magfo-focus lang ako on autism because I know that that's what more of you are concerned about. In the studies, nakita rin that the timing of the regression was important. Like I said, it could happen between 18 months to 3 years old. That was the average that they found. But also that even if some parents said na bigla na lang nawala yung skill, biglang hindi na lang niya sinasabi. But in retrospect, when they further investigated those cases, some cases weren't actually very sudden. Parang it was gradual naman pala, but some parents missed some of the earlier clues na ay meron na palang nangyayari na hindi typical in their child's development. Now, in terms of the children with autism that had regression versus the children with ASD without regression, nakita nila that children with regression of skills were likely to have more cognitive deficiencies as they got older, so that it was more likely for intellectual disability to co-occur. Children who had regression of skills also showed higher symptomatologies of autism, especially with regard to social communication. And because I always want to give you a short summary, that's all that I have to say first about what they have in research or what they've studied about regression in children. And now I'm going to move on to things that I have personally experienced. So now that in my almost 9 years of clinical practice, I have had 2 cases where children with epilepsy had regression of skills. Epilepsy is a condition where there is frequent seizures in the brain. So in both particular cases that I handled, the child had a regression of skills with every seizure, so that we were only really able to proceed after we had resolved the child's seizures. So it was resolved with constant monitoring from the child's doctor and with medication. And the next and biggest factor that I've found in my own practice, pero wala pa masyadong research about it, is that regression of skills can also be caused by screen or gadget time. So yung mga batang may early exposure to screens and gadgets and hyper-stimulating videos, nakikita na dati nakikipag-eye contact naman, dati may mga nasasabi ng words, pero ngayon hindi na talaga siya makausap, di na siya nagre-respond sa kanyang name, di na siya nakikipag-communicate, di na siya humihingi. All of these skills, napapansin ng mga parents, nag-stop yung bata. And then when I advised to have them remove screen time as a factor, because it is one thing that we can control, because if it is a condition, like what I said, Rett syndrome, or Landau-Kleffner, or autism, di natin yan makokontrol. It is caused by the child's development nga. There is a disruption in their development. But screen time is something that we can manage. It is something that we can control. Kaya ba nating tanggalin itong factor na to sa bata? Yes. Madali ba? No, of course not. But with enough commitment and dedication and knowing that it could be what is best for your child and your family, then it's something that we should want to try or explore. And that's how I'll end today. I hope that you learned something and take some of the things I said into consideration with regard to how you will move forward. So kung nakapansin po ng mga ganitong characteristics sa inyong anak, kung napansin yung may nawalang skill, whether it is motor, as in dati nakakapag-grab naman siya ng objects, biglang hindi na, or nag-eye contact dati, or may nasabi ng word dati, tas ngayon hindi na naulit, please contact a professional, whether it is a developmental pediatrician or a speech-language pathologist like me. I would love to refer you to someone that could help you manage and have early intervention. If this was useful to you, I hope that you can share it with your friends and your loved ones. And if you haven't yet, please consider subscribing by clicking that button, and we would love to have you here learning with us. And hanggang sa muli, happy talking and mabuhay!